Well, just recently I was asked about the history of Forgotten Genre Productions and where the name came from, how I got started, the whole nine yards. So I thought it'd be good to do a quick little, well, I don't know about quick, maybe I'll break it into a couple segments, but do a history on Forgotten Genre Productions and where things came from. Shortly after high school, I started working with a lot of bands. Actually, when I was in high school, I was working with some heavy metal, a heavy metal ministry based out of Lancaster called Light Shine International. I worked with a band called Sardonyx. Great guys, great band. We toured all over the local area and even around the country. And I was their stage manager and kind of technical director, if you will. I did that for a number of years. That wasn't a paid position; that was a volunteer position. And then when that finished, I did a lot of help with concert promotions and stuff like that. One of my best friends, Kurt Weaver, started a company called Underground Productions for concert promotion and management. He managed bands like Jawbone Hill, The Rain Children, Mac the Coffee Man, a couple others. And then he also did concert promotions. When he did promotions, I would pretty much act as the technical liaison between the bands and getting everything on stage and getting everything technically ready. And Kurt would do all the business stuff and organizational stuff and all that. So I was really just supporting him. I wasn't a partner in the business at all. I was just basically helping him. I did that for a number of years and always wanted to, my goal was always to tour and to get out on the road and was offered jobs by many different people, but none of them were official. It was always like, wow, I wish we could, afford to take you out on the road with us. So that was that scenario. Around 1997, I think it was, a band named The Waiting was coming to do a show in the Lancaster area and was advancing the show with Kurt, their road manager, John O'Neill, who's one of my favorite people, was advancing the show, and he just happened to offhand say, "Hey, Kurt, you don't know anybody who wants to go on the road and run monitors, do you? We just lost our monitor guy today." Of course, Kurt was thinking of me and said, "Well, hey, I got a guy that could do it. Let me check with him." So the interesting thing about this was on a Monday that he talked to John, and I happened to stop in and to see him, and he told me about the phone call, and I was kind of like, "Yeah, all right, that's I've heard that one before, but what? I'll call him. Why not?" So I called John on a Monday to see what he was looking for. I told him I was interested in the job, and he had Todd Olson, the band leader, call me the next day, Tuesday, and we talked about money and what could be done there. And Wednesday, I made a decision to take the job, and I met the band on Saturday. So that's how fast it happened. I had been waiting, oh man, 5 or 6 years to get a gig on the road, and it happened really quickly when it happened. I got a phone call Monday, made a decision Wednesday, and by Saturday I was on the road. I followed the band down to Atlanta, where they're based out of. I basically lived out of my car for a couple months. Stayed in some seedy establishments in Atlanta. I slept on couches when I could, with friends, whatever I could scrounge around. But at that point, the first gig I got, I was making $700 a month, which wasn't a lot of money, but I thought I hit the lottery. It was amazing. I mean, we left from, I met the band Saturday and did a show up in northern Pennsylvania. We swung back down Sunday and picked up my gear, and I followed them, and we went to North Carolina, Atlanta, Alabama, Florida, Nashville, and before you know it, I was on the road and remained on the road for the next 3 or 4 years. After the waiting, I got an apartment in Nashville. I moved to Nashville. I worked with bands like the Small Town Poets, Sixpence None the Richer, Waterdeep, Big Tent Revival, the Normals, some of these unofficially. Some of them, were just touring with the bands that I was working with. I worked with the Newsboys for a very brief tenure, and had a great time on the road. But the bottom line was eventually I got to the point where I figured out that this probably didn't make sense, probably wasn't sustainable for a long time. I didn't want to get to be 40 years old and be on the road and not married, or married and divorced, or any sort of it just didn't seem like a really sustainable lifestyle. And I felt like I needed to be in church on Sunday. I really missed out on touring, of being in a local body and having that accountability. And that was a big deal for me. So in 1999, I moved back to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, not knowing what I was going to do, not knowing where I was going to stay or live, or work, but knew I was supposed to be in church on Sunday. That's all I knew. So I came back. A couple days after coming back, I stopped in at Clare Brothers in Lidditz. Ended up getting a job with them. They brought me on in their systems department. I worked there for about 6 months. And from that point on, I didn't do a lot of music other than church, because it just it seemed like I needed to get on with life and try and get a real job, and I struggled for a number of years finding a job that because I'd spent 10 years of my life pursuing professional audio. That was, all I knew. And I didn't want to get a job in the business because I was afraid that the hours would, be a lot of weekends and a lot of evenings and would take me away from, church activities, which is where I felt called to at that time. So I tried to put the music thing aside for a number of years. In 2000, I met my wonderful wife, Tracy. We started courting and dating, and then got married in 2001. And then that was a long time of trying to support her and care for her, and do the manly thing of taking care of a family. So fast forward to about 2000. Oh, I don't know, 2003-ish, 2005, somewhere in around there. Through this whole time, I slowly, I would buy, some recording equipment here and there, just an interface and a Pro Tools rig, just because I wanted to do that kind of thing. But I didn't have any clients, and I didn't have a lot of gear, and I just kind of played around on my own and floundered a bit. There was times where, I spent more money than was probably appropriate in our budget, for equipment, and then, felt convicted about it, and then sold it, to pay my bills, and continued to help out in the local church and serve there, and do stuff here and there. Every once in a while, I'd freelance and mix a live gig when I got the chance, or help out some friends